Yan. I hope you can hear me. Isang magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Welcome po sa isa na namang episode ng online series ni Inang Pamantasan kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako nga po pala si Teacher Sid at ako po ang inyong magiging learning from home buddy para sa episode na ito. Samahan niyo po ako as I walk you through fostering student engagement in blended learning. By the way, huwag pong kalimutang i-comment ang inyong mga kuro-kuro at mga katanungan tungkol sa ating episode ngayong araw at huwag din pong kalimutang i-like at i-share ang ating episode. So muli po, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat mga kapwa ko guro na nanonood sa ating FB page at sa aking mga estudyante rin na naririto sa umagang ito. Before I begin, I'd like to roll out first our house rules. Familiar po ba kayo, teacher, sa 4Ps? Baka iniisip niyo po yung Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program. Yan, tama naman po kayo. But for the purpose of our webinar this morning, 4Ps would stand for, the first P would stand for pay attention. I'd like you to give us your 100% attention in everything that we are going to discuss and tackle this morning so that you can also, number 2, participate actively in some simple activities that I prepared for you. Okay po? And for our third P, teachers, ponder. Ano po pumapasok sa isipan ninyo? Baka naiisip niyo po yung salitang reflect or introspection. Tama naman po kayo because I really want you to think through as I present concepts to you about student engagement and blended learning. Gusto ko pong balikan ninyo at isipin ninyo ang inyong mga konteksto, ang inyong mga estudyante, ang inyong mga paaralan, and check if the things that I'm going to present here would be meaningful and beneficial to you. At kung halimbawa naman pong may mga strategies or may mga activities akong ipapakita or i-share sa inyo at sa tingin nyo, ginagawa nyo rin ito. That's so perfect because we can also think through and try to see where we can modify things, no, para mas lalo nating ma-improve kung ano man yung ginagawa natin for our students. And for the last P, teachers, pakibasa nyo nga po sa inyong mga tahanan or kung nasaan man po kayo. Ito ang kaisa-isang Filipino word among the list. Kung binasa nyo siya as pantay-pantay or pantay-pantay, tama po kayo. We are all equal here. I know that there are a lot of subject specialists listening to me right now and some pre-service teachers on Facebook Live. Gusto ko pong gamitin ninyo yung mga expertise ninyo as we discuss things about student engagement and blended learning para mas maging meaningful at mas maging makabuluhan ang ating discussion. Okay po? So that would be our 4 Ps. And to begin, teachers, I would like to invite you for a very quick check-in. I normally begin my webinars and even my classes with a check-in. And for today, very simple lang. I want you to answer this very simple question. If you were not here in this webinar, where would you rather be? Kung wala po kayo ngayon sa webinar na ito, saan niyo po kaya gustong naroroon? I want you to think of a particular place or baka favorite place nyo sa inyong mga tahanan, or it can be an out-of-town place or pwede rin out of the country. No? Gusto kong isipin nyo po yung gusto nyong lugar kung nasaan kayo, kung wala po kayo dito sa webinar na ito. Sige nga po, you can write your answers on a piece of paper within your reach, or you can actually just type it in the comment section para po mabasa natin. And maybe at this point, you are thinking of going to the beach, particularly baka sa Boracay, no? Para ngayon na nag-uulan na, makahabol pa rin tayo para makalanghap ng sariwang hangin mula sa dagat. At baka yung iba would rather stay at home sa kanilang respective rooms na pwedeng magbasa ng libro na gusto nila, uminom ng kape, or makasama ang mga mahal nila sa buhay. Maybe some of you answered Teacher Sid. Parang gusto kong mag-spend ng quality time with my respective family members at kumain ng mga masasarap na pagkain na gustong-gusto namin. At this point, siguro tinatanong nyo, so what is the relationship of the question and of these pictures that I'm showing you and with the answers, no? Baka yung iba sa inyo, iba rin ang sagot to the topic that I'm going to present. Habang tinatanong ko kanina yung check-in question, gusto ko sanang balikan ninyo yung excitement, yung level ng kasiyahan habang iniisip nyo, saan ko nga ba gustong mapunta if I'm not here in this webinar? And I also want you to think of the level of interest at passion habang iniisip nyo yung sagot ninyo. Because the same level of excitement, kilig, at kasiyahan at excitement ay sana same level din whenever our students are with us in our respective classes. And so, student engagement is what I'm going to share with you this particular morning. Once again, I am Teacher Sid, and I asked some teachers, mga kakilala ko, kung ano ba yung mga na-experience nila o yung mga pinagdadaanan nila habang sila ay nagtuturo ng distance learning or sa blended learning, at ngayon na bumabalik na tayo unti-unti with limited face-to-face, no? One teacher, Darwin, ang sabi niya, may mga student ako na nasa Zoom room, kaso hindi talaga sila nagsasalita or nagpa-participate, no? And I can relate to this. Minsan pag tinawag mo, maglilib pa ng meeting room, no? Or ng inyong session, okay? And I know some of you are also experiencing this, and this sharing of Teacher Darwin from Caloocan City is very valid. Another one is Teacher Rachel from Mandaluyong City. Ang sabi niya, establishing a personal connection, I think, is one of the challenges that I still face right now kasi sila Teacher Rachel ay purely online pa rin. And it's very challenging for her to connect with her students, especially that now she's still teaching remotely. Okay? On the other hand, we have Teacher John from Manila. Sabi niya, parang napansin ko na mas umiksi ang attention span ng mga mag-aaral ko ngayong face-to-face, ngayong nagbalik na sila, no? Mabilis silang ma-distract at kailangan ng mas marami pang prompts para makagawa sila. And I understand that the students under Teacher John's tutelage are still coping, no, at nagta-transition sila from purely online or modular to limited face-to-face. Kaya ito ay very valid. Now that we heard some of the teachers' responses to my question, it is also vital and important that we need to know what about the perspectives of the students. Sa kanila kaya, ano yung naiisip nila kapag tinatanong sila about student engagement or being engaged in distance learning? I'd like to share with you some responses. Ito yung mga pseudonym din. Si Abigail, a grade 6 pupil, ang sabi niya, I love playing online games. So I think activities with similar elements would really engage me. And knowing the generation, no, of our students, talagang they're digital natives, they are into playing gadgets, they're exposed to this, and they really want to be empowered. Gusto nila, nararamdaman nila yung may sense of control sila, kaya kapag naglalaro sila ng mga online games, sila talaga yung bida. And they really want that, no? Especially in our classes, gusto nilang ma-translate din yon. And thank you, Abigail, for sharing that with us. Another one is Bettina, a grade 4 pupil. Ang sabi niya, gusto ko pong matapos yung mga activities ko on my own kasi feeling ko po mas successful po ako. And sensing from this response of Bettina, makikita natin, teachers, na karamihan sa mga mag-aaral ngayon, they really want to feel that level of independence, no? That they can do things on their own independently. So thank you, Bettina. And lastly, I have Andre, a grade 8 student. Sabi ni Andre, I'm looking forward to performing different activities because I know how difficult it is to maintain my attention in doing similar things over and over again. And from this statement of Andre, we can deduce that most students, including Andre, would rather have and they prefer and they are looking forward to experiencing varied activities in class. No? At itong mga sagot na ito ng mga estudyante, no, ilan lang sila, at ng mga guro, teachers, these would cascade and would shed light to my presentation this particular morning. And so my presentation is actually divided into 4 parts. The first one is I'll be contextualizing what student engagement and blended learning is. I know that most of you are already familiar with these concepts. And then for my second part, I'll be sharing with you some strategies how we can foster student engagement among our students nowadays. And side by side with that, I'll also be presenting you some best practices. I'm so fortunate that I have this group of friends na mga guro din that I asked them how do they engage their students in the field right now. At generously shinare po nila itong mga kasagutang ang kanilang mga ginagawa sa kanilang classroom, and I'll also be sharing them with you later on. And then lastly, we'll have our open forum. If there are questions that you would like to be clarified about, especially about the session that we are having right now. And so let me first contextualize what student engagement and blended learning is. Student engagement, according to Reshley and Kristenton, refers to the amount of attention, efforts, participation, curiosity, interest, and passion shown when students are learning or being taught. In fact, Fredericks, Blumenfeld, and Paris in 2004, they say that student engagement can be manifested in different areas. Okay, student engagement can be shown behaviorally, it can be shown emotionally, it can be manifested cognitively, and lastly, agentically. Isa-isahin po natin ito. According to Fredericks, students are behaviorally engaged if they are actively participating and there's involvement in all learning activities. And this can be observed when the students are very proactive in pursuing learning tasks and they take full responsibility for their personal learning. So when you notice that your students are very active in class, very participative sila, very involved, you can be so sure that they are behaviorally engaged in your session. On the other hand, we have emotional engagement. This one focuses on the effective responses and reactions to their classmates, teachers, learning activities, and the school in general. If your students feel that they are safe, if your learning environment is a safe space for them to express their thoughts, their ideas, then you can be sure that there's a high level of emotional engagement. Okay. Third, we have cognitive. It talks about students' mental efforts to complete specific tasks, not just by superficial learning strategies, but rather with deep, self-regulated, and strategic approaches to learning. So kapag talagang gustong-gusto nila itong matapos, yung mga activities that you are giving them, mga performance tasks that you are giving them, there are mental efforts, then cognitive engagement is really present. Lastly, we have agentic. Agentic engagement refers to the students' proactive efforts to contribute to the teaching and learning process positively and constructively. Kung nanonotice ninyo, teachers, kung may mga estudyante kayo who can express with you during your classes, baka bago mag-start or after, there are students who would express their learning goals, there are questions, may mga interests sila about the course at in-express nila ito sa inyo, then they are agentically engaged in your respective classes. And so at this juncture, it would be best to ponder and ask ourselves, which among these types of engagement do your students exhibit the most? And which among them also, do your students exhibit the least? Baka sa klase ko, teacher said, grabe yung agentic engagement. Sa klase ko naman sa kabilang section, parang very behaviorally engaged yung mga bata. So you try to look and assess your respective classes so that you know how to also holistically, at least capture all the areas that we want our students to be engaged in. Okay, so this is just a question for you to ponder on. Now let's proceed to blended learning. There are a lot of definitions out there about blended learning. Some literature would say that it's also called hybrid learning or mixed mode learning. It is the practice of using both in-person and online learning experiences in giving academic instructions or academic instruction to students. Okay, in our country, in our context, it is a combination of any of the subcategories of distance learning, such as modular distance learning or MDL, online distance learning or ODL, and television radio-based instruction. And based on this combination, we can actually see that blended learning can incorporate best classroom practices to personalized approaches in order for us to cater to the diverse groups of learners. Of course, maraming learning styles at iba-iba ang learning styles ng mga estudyante natin ngayon that we really have to consider them as well. And it really helps students engage positively in all activities and increase their behavior towards learning, according to Tupas and Linas Laguda in 2020. Now, as I'm preparing for this particular presentation, teachers, I actually encountered some journal articles because this is also the dissertation that I am pursuing, no? Kaya ito rin po talaga yung binabasa ko, ay malapit sa puso ko ang student engagement. And I read some articles saying, or most articles saying that we can foster, no, student engagement can be fostered in blended learning when we satisfy three basic needs that are identified by Ryan and Deci, which we call the self-determination theory. And what are these needs? Number one is the need for autonomy, relatedness, and then competence. Okay? So again, student engagement in blended learning can be fostered when we satisfy these three needs. Isa-isahin po natin. Autonomy, according to American Psychological Association, as cited in Rotten 2014, students experience autonomy when they feel supported to explore, to take initiative, and develop solutions for their problems. So this is very much similar to choose your own adventure experience. So the students do have control over their learning progress and the things that they really want to pursue in your respective classes. Next, we have relatedness. Relatedness pertains to an experience, no, when students do perceive that others are listening to them and others are also responding to them. Kaya mahalaga po talaga na we connect to them, we open lines of communication, especially if they are experiencing difficulties, kahit anong mode pa yan ng communication. And we also want the students to feel that they are supported, no, in whatever journeys they are experiencing. When learners feel, teachers, that other people can relate to them and that they are connected with those people, it motivates them to succeed. Kaya mahalaga na masatisfy natin itong pangangailangan na to, which is relatedness. And lastly, we have competence. Students experience competence when they are challenged and when they are given, this is very essential, prompt feedback. Okay? So kailangan whenever we give and we think or plan of activities, we need to challenge them with content that is appropriately difficult for them. Not so difficult and not so easy. And we really need to provide timely feedback, because whenever we provide timely feedback to our students, especially on the outputs that they are submitting, they know their progress and it motivates them, it fuels them to push forward at tapusin yung mga activities that they really have to accomplish. So again, the three needs that we need to satisfy for us to be able to foster student engagement in blended learning. Number one is autonomy, relatedness, and competence. Now, at this point, the question would be how? How are we going now to implement and to satisfy, Teacher Sid, all those three needs that you mentioned about self-determination theory. So at this juncture, at this point, allow me now to share with you some strategies on how to foster student engagement in blended learning. The first one is we need to ensure active learning. This includes almost any approach to education that involves asking students to learn through carrying out meaningful activities. If the students are taking active roles in your class at hindi lang sila mere passive recipient of information, then we can ensure active learning. Lahat ng mga activities na ginagawa nyo para ma-involve sila sa learning activities, they would fall under active learning. In fact, I know you're very much familiar with this pyramid. This one says that students remember 70% of what they say and write, no? And 90% of what they do. So as much as possible, we need to devote and perform and ask the students to do activities under this part of the pyramid, as compared to some passive learning activities, okay? And some of the active learning activities that you can actually do, teachers. Number one, whenever you ask them to answer modules or to read any articles or stories or any parts of your textbook, you can actually involve them and let them ask questions as they read. Allow them to write their questions sa kanilang notebook or any part of the book if you are allowing that, if you're allowing your students to do that, because whenever they have these questions, they can make use of these questions kapag sila ay nagko-consult sa inyo or kung kayo ay mag-face to face, for example, so that your discussion about that particular journal article or that particular material that you ask them to read at home, mas magiging meaningful at makabuluhan, no? Because they already have the questions with them. Next, please do encourage your students to take notes using their own words. Whenever they're listening to your lectures or kung meron ka din pinapabasa sa kanila, kung kayo naman ay modular, kung kayo naman ay online kapag nakikinig sila sa'yo or meron silang mga na-encounter na important points, please allow the students to do note-taking. This is an essential skill that students nowadays should really establish among themselves. Because when they can take notes using their own words, we can be sure that retention would be there. Kung halimbawa meron po kayong pinapabasa sa kanilang mga parts ng libro or meron kayong binibigay na module sa kanila, self-learning module, allow them to highlight difficult words, allow them to circle or do any notation or kung anumang mga symbols ang pwede nilang gawin so that they would be aware of their comprehension, the way they understand whatever you're asking them to read. So note-taking is an essential skill. Next is also summarizing. There are teachers who would be giving graphic organizers. No? Ako mahilig din po ako sa graphic organizer. As a textbook writer, ang amin pong libro would always be filled with graphic organizers, lalo na kapag mga activities yan at sa dulo, for us to gauge the understanding of the students, it's really important that we ask them to summarize para lang din guided sila of their level of comprehension. Then next, this is what I like, teachers, talking and chatting. We can direct the students to talk to someone. It can be their seatmate, their learning buddy, or their parents at home, no, or any relatives at that. So they can talk about the information that they are learning using their own words. At halimbawa, I'm sure karamihan sa mga magulang na nakikinig ngayon or dun sa mga kasama sa bahay, mga tito at tita, kapag dumarating ngayon yung mga pamangkin ninyo or pagkatapos ng online class nila, you would ask them kapag lunchtime or dinner time, anong natutunan mo today? What are the things that you did? Ano yung exciting part sa araw mo ngayon sa school? You allow the students to talk and to chat with you so that all this information that they can share with you using their own words would retain to them. No? Kailangan na i-express nila at ipapaliwanag nila ito using their own words. And then lastly, connecting. Instruct your students to think how the new information fits in with the things that they already know. I know that as teachers, marami tayong ginagawang mga activities at mga modalities for us to be able to, for the students to be able to do this. So importante na alam nila ano yung connection ngayon, no, ng lesson 1 sa lesson 2, ano yung connection ng module 1 sa module 2. Maybe there are teachers who would really draw graphic organizers para din makasunod yung mga bata na ito pala yung relationship ng mga pinag-aaralan namin, so that they would see things holistically. So again, some of the things that you can do is ask your students to ask precise questions, do note taking, summarize, talk and chatting, and connecting as well. Okay? And I'm also sure, teachers, that there are some of you who would be presenting to your respective classes engaging videos and images and other prompts for you to make sure that your students are actively learning and that they are with you in that particular moment. When I observe a particular class, it's a naraling panlipunan class. Ito po yung larawang pinapakita ng teacher online. So I was able to observe a class because I'm really preparing for my dissertation. So I was allowed to observe by this teacher. Ang sabi nung pinakita po itong larawan na ito nung guro at ang sabi niya, ano nakikita ninyo, klase? So the students would give the teachers their responses such as may babae po na may hawak na barbell, and then the teacher would continue, kilala nyo ba siya? Sino siya? And then the students can actually identify. But what I like about the discussion was that na-translate or na-transform ng teacher yung responsibility from her to her students. After niya magtanong ng mga questions, she asked her students to also ask questions about the picture that they are seeing on screen. So sabi ng teacher, at this point, kung meron kayong katanungan base sa inyong nakikita sa larawan, ano kaya ang mga tanong na gusto nyong banggitin para kay Heidelin Diaz? And I was surprised that students would really give nicely crafted questions such as, of all, in Filipino po yun, no? Sabi niya, among sa lahat ng mga sports, bakit mo napili ang weightlifting? Yun yung gusto niyang itanong kay Heidelin Diaz if given the opportunity, no? Meron pang nagsabi na bata, at sa pagkakataong ito, ano ang nasa isip mo? Ano ang nararamdaman mo? And these questions in that particular activity really made the students think critically. And that's what we want the students to be in our respective classes. Gusto natin maging active sila. So help your students interact with different types of content. Even as simple pictures and videos, napaka magandang lunsaran ito ng isang napaka makabuluhang discussion. And ako po, bilang ngayon facilitator sa kolehiyo, nung nababasa ko yung active learning, may mga articles ako nababasa na sinasabi that they really want to avoid as much as possible doing lectures. No? Pero dahil sa university, meron tayong dapat i-share din sa mga estudyante na kailangan nilang malaman. What I normally do is to do just like this. Kaya nung nakita ko po itong chart na ito from Center for Educational Innovation, it validated what I'm doing in my class as a college instructor. Kasi sa akin pong mga klase, no, at alam ng mga estudyante ko ito, kung kami ay may session, I would really avoid doing a very long lecture for 1.5 hours. Normally, meron akong, kung hindi man advanced organizer, meron akong check-in like what we did earlier. And then I would connect that check-in to my lecture. And then I would have a very short activity that would allow them to experience the knowledge at ma-practice kung ano man yung natutunan nila. At meron ulit activity that would connect to the next one. And then we end by asking them what they learned, no? Kung ano mang natutunan nila, kung meron man silang kuro-kuro, so that I can also gauge whether the discussion is effective or not, or baka meron silang mga misconception pa about what I presented. And just to share with you, teachers, ito yung normally kong ginagawa. Aside from asking questions, no, katulad nung tanong ko kanina sa check-in, where would you rather be? I will also ask them, natutunan ko to sa seminar na na-attenan ko, asking students how they're feeling today. Because sabi kanina ni Desi, there's a need for us to satisfy the need for relatedness, no? And this one can strongly connect me to my students by simply just asking them, how are you feeling today? Kumusta kayo ngayong araw na to? Sabi ng iba kong mga estudyante, Teacher Sid, alam mo, isa ka dun sa mga professors na nilook forward namin kasi you would really ask us kung kumusta kami, kung kumusta yung pakiramdam namin. And I normally do that because that will allow me to establish more connections sa mga estudyante ko dahil lahat tayo may pinagdadaanan ngayong araw. Bakit yung iba 2 minutes late, 5 minutes late, baka mayroong problema sa bahay. And asking them how they're feeling today, kung kumusta sila, would make them feel and have that reassurance na they're supported, no? Na hindi sila nag-iisa sa journey na ito, especially na maraming pinagdadaanan ng ating mga estudyante. Ilan lamang po ito sa mga ginagawa ko rin sa classroom. In one of my classes on, this one is on classroom management, when I was about to discuss self-discipline, tinanong ko yung mga estudyante using my Padlet kung ano yung mga konsepto. It can be a word, a phrase, or a picture that come to their mind whenever they see the word self-discipline. Kasi may mga estudyante, no, hindi kasi sila required to turn on their camera. So for me to gauge whether they're still actively involved na nandiyan pa rin sila, I would rather opt to have activities such as this. At makikita mo, meron silang konsepto about the topic at napakagandang jump-off point nito para sa aming discussion sa araw na yon. Also, kapag halimbawang natatapos ako ng isang lecture or mga for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I would end it by asking the students, let's pause for a moment and I want you to draw. Yeah, mahilig po ako yan kung hindi man 3 salita or isang phrase, I would ask them to draw what's in their mind, what's happening, what's going on, ano nang natututunan nila or anong naglalaro sa isipan nila. This one is a discussion on social literacy at nagulat ako, ito yung mga output ng mga pre-service teachers under my course, no, last term. Medyo iba-iba yung interpretation nila, but I'm so happy and elated to listen to them as well kasi hindi lang nila ito pinapakita. I would also allow them to share and to express bakit ito yung kanilang ginawa or bakit ito yung kanilang iginuhit. And it really makes the discussion very fruitful and very meaningful for everyone. So these are just some of the things. And I'm so fortunate, teachers, like what I said earlier, no? Sobra kong fortunate because I have friends who are also in the field who are very generous in sharing their practices. So si Teacher Ann Manhit, she's the directress of Little Way Play School. I hope she's listening right now sa FB page. Thank you, Ann, for sharing this. She sent me a lot of pictures of what they're doing in her progressive school in Taguig, no? And on this slide, nakikita nyo dito sa side na ito, merong isang bata na dinesign niya or dinecorate niya yung 2 boxes on his own. Nilagyan niya ng mga designs at nag-drawing siya, pinaganda niya. And these are the boxes that he is going to make use of for segregation kasi yun yung konsepto na tinuturo sa school. While the 2 other pictures over here, ito sabi ni Teacher Ann, after discussing concepts about bridges, pagkatapos silang magbasa ng mga stories about bridges, ngayon, they allow their students to use materials that they are sending, that they sent at home, at yung mga materials din na meron sila sa kanilang tahanan para makapag-create sila ng sarili nilang mga bridges, no? At meron silang mga materials na ginamit para gumamit pa ng mga clay, so they can also test and see for themselves ano ba yung mga konsepto na nakapaloob sa pagtatayo ng isang bridge. Can you just imagine young learners in Little Way Play School are already doing this? Ito yung talagang classic and shining example ng active learning where the students are really doing things on their own. So napakaganda. Maraming salamat, Teacher Ann, for sharing this with me. And next, aside from active learning, what we need to do for us to engage our students in this learning platform is to communicate. No, communication helps your students. It helps us get our students' attention. And what type of communication I'm referring here? The non-verbal way. No, because it makes students feel more connected. Again, in connection with relatedness. If the students feel that they are connected, that they are seen, that they are heard from a distance, mas nabibuild at na-establish yung relationship, no, at mas lalo silang na-engage. Gestural praises are not only going to produce positive motivational effects, but will also help build more connection with your students virtually. In fact, I'll be sharing with you, I know that yung mga Zoom room natin, yung mga Google Meet and other learning online platform na ginagamit ninyo, may mga built-in yan na mga emoji, mga thumbs up, okay, or any other icons, okay? You can actually make use of some non-verbal gestures for you to establish more connection at para mas masuportahan itong mga built-in features ng mga online platforms natin, online meeting platforms, no? I would like to share with you some simple ASL. So this is a universal language for online meetings that you can make use of from Emakist, okay? One that you can make use of, okay, is this, no? Pwede niyo pong sabayan ito. This one means same, no? Kung yung mga estudyante niyo do experience or do have the same opinion, do experience the same thing, meron silang parehong perspective, then they can tell you this symbol. Me too or same. So that symbol, me too or same. So instead of saying it or saying, teacher, me too, sa online platform, or kahit nasa loob kayo ng classroom, they can actually express it to you. I'm also experiencing the same thing. I also have the same perspective and opinion as yours. Okay, so that's same or me too. The other one is this. Okay, this one, okay, this one is again, if your students want you as their teacher to repeat what you have just said, o kung anong ginawa lang ninyo, or kakasabi mo lang, or nung kaklase niya, again, okay, nakikita ninyo, kailangan matutukan din ng mga bata, no, yung kung paano yung facial expression that comes with this particular language. Aside from again, okay, meron din tayong slow down or make it slow. Kung halimbawa may nag-share or may nagpe-present na sobrang bilis, or ikaw din bilang kanilang teacher, ang bilis mo nagsasalita, then they can do that. Slow or slow down. Yung slow down, tsaka yung again, these are signs that can help your students connect with you at makikita at mararamdaman nila na you are also concerned about the pacing, no? Baka meron silang hindi naiintindihan or may kailangan kang i-reteach or kailangan mong bagalan ng konti, no? It really establishes relatedness. Now, the other two, I know you're familiar also with this one. To affirm or to say yes. Tingnan niyo yung smile niya. Yes. Understand? Yeah. Understand. Okay. And if you want to appreciate a particular performance or a particular answer or output, ito yung, I know you're also very familiar with this. Yeah. This one is giving an applause, no? So nakaganyan, and look at the facial expression because it also sends clearer message kung sumasabay din yung facial expression. You can actually visit and download some of these videos on YouTube, no? From Emakist, ASL Signs for Online Meetings. So communication is really important. We have to establish that. And speaking of communication, sabi ko nga rin kanina, no? If you want your students to feel that they are also connected, aside from all these sign languages, we need to open all lines of communication. No, kahit sa mga magulang baka meron ding pinagdadaanan yung kanilang mga anak na hindi nila masabi through us, then we can actually address these concerns using these lines of communication. Okay? Number 3, teachers, be creative. I know most of you who are listening to me right now are, very creative at lahat na ini-exhaust ninyo para maibigay, no, lahat ng magagandang activities for your students nowadays. So we need to think about how are we going to spice up our presentations and activities. Kaya saludo ako sa mga guro na nakikinig ngayon at sa mga guro na nag-share ng kanilang mga best practices sa atin, para nang sa ganun, mas spice up nila, mas mabigyan nila ng kakaibang flavor yung mga activities nila. There's this one colleague of mine and a good friend of mine, si Sir Jodel. Sir Jodel, I hope you're listening. He is also from Philippine Normal University, batch 2005, and he was awarded as the most innovative and outstanding tutor of DepEd Itolay. Nakikita ko tong mga posts na ito sa kanya. Nagpaalam ako kay Sir if I can share this with you, teachers. Ito yung ginagawa ni Sir Jodel during his DepEd Itolay encounters with his students. Hindi siya nauubusan ng creativity at sobra akong sumasaludo sa kanya because can you just imagine, no, as a student na ito ay isang tutorial class and you would be seeing your teacher doing these efforts, no, gaano man kalaki or gaano man kasimple, na-appreciate sila ng mga bata. I think nagiging thematic siya. This one is nung February, no, so Valentine's Day. Ito naman nung book month. So parang ito ay si Juan Tamad, no, na kanyang pinortray. At ito has something to do with the festival. So I know that you also have your creativity, no? Meron din kayong mga naiisip. I'm showing this just to inspire you and to say na hindi kayo nag-iisa, no? At huwag kayong mawalan ng passion na kapag yung iba baka sabihin ang OA naman or hindi naman yan importante. You know, the students are really appreciative of all the efforts that we are exerting kahit gaano man yan kasimple basta't nagmumula sa ating puso. So, thank you Sir Jodel for sharing this with us, no. So, we have to be creative. Also, I was able to observe a particular class. This one is a science class. Nagulat ako kasi you know that Bring Me is a game that we normally do kapag merong mga parties na in person, no? Pre-pandemic time, very familiar kayo with Bring Me. Pero itong teacher na ito, ginamit niya ito at baka kayo rin po nagamit niyo na ito sa inyong respective classes where she asked her students to get all these items sa kanilang respective houses. At nakita namin habang pinanonood ko yung kanyang demo, may mga parents din who would also be supportive. Kaya mas nagiging exciting siya. At yung mga bata talagang gusto nila at engaged sila in looking for these items. At nung natapos na nilang makuha sa kanilang, maybe sa kanilang bathroom or sa kitchen, that's the time the teacher process things out. Ano yung mga nakuha nila, kung sino yung kompleto, at para saan ito, no? Yun yung magandang jump off point eh. She allowed the students to move. Kasi ang hirap din kung halimbawang nasa online class ka and they are just seated the entire 40-minute class. So yung infusion ng ganitong mga movement and active participation from the students is really a good activity. So there. Also, the same parang same teacher na na-observe ko, siya naman ang speaker ngayon. Okay? But si Hazel Perio, who is also a good friend of mine, kung nanonood ka man, Hazel, thank you so much, A, for sharing this with me. Ang ginawa niya, inallow niya yung mga estudyante niya to listen to some Filipino teachers. So nasa Colorado, USA na siya. Ito yung kanyang mga estudyante. At ang ginawa niya, she invited Filipino teachers dun sa dati niyang eskwelahan to present to her students about certain concepts in science, no? At napakaganda nito because nowadays our technology can already do this. So nabi-break na yung mga boundaries and yung konsepto ng multicultural literacy, we can invite people from different countries, from different culture, and our students can also understand, no, why people behave the way they do. Napakaganda na nung learning platform na pwede nating makuha using all of these things. And by being creative, pwede natin itong gawin. And I'm sure kung pinaplano nyo rin ito, maganda po na ma-experience din ito ng mga estudyante nyo for as long as the technology that you have would permit it. Okay? And next, aside from inviting people over, another concept about creativity is that we also want our students to produce outputs based on the things that they are learning in our respective classes. And what I'll be showing with you very, very quickly is a very quick video of a student, of a boy who created an innovation in order to solve a peculiar problem in his community. Panoorin natin siya saglit, tapos I'll be sharing important points with you. Still on creativity.
This is where I live. I live in Kenya at the south parts of the Nairobi National Park. Those are my dad cows at the back, and behind the cows, that's the Nairobi National Park. Nairobi National Park is not fenced in the south where I live, which means wild animals like zebras migrate out of the park freely. So predators like lions follow them, and this is what they do. They kill our livestock. It's one of the cows which was killed at night, and I just woke up in the morning and I found it dead, and I felt so bad because it was the only bull we had. My community, the Maasai, we believe that we came from heaven with all our animals and all the land for herding them, and that's why we value them so much. So I grew up hating lions so much. The Morans are the warriors who protect our community and the livestock, and they were so upset about this problem. So they killed the lions. It's one of the 6 lions which were killed in Nairobi. And I think this is why the Nairobi National Park lions are few. So a boy from 6 to 9 years old in my community is responsible for his dad's cows. And that's the same thing which happened to me. So I had to find a way of solving this problem. And the first idea I got was to use fire, because I thought lions were scared of fire. But I came to realize that that didn't really help, because it was even helping the lions to see through the caution. So I didn't give up. I continued. And the second idea I got was to use a scarecrow. I was trying to trick the lions that I was standing near the caution. But lions are very clever. They will come the first day and they see the scarecrow and they go back. But the second day, they'll come and they say, this thing is not moving here, it's always here. So it jumps in and kills the animals. So one night I was walking around the caution with a torch, and that day the lions didn't come. And I discovered that lions were afraid of a moving light. So I had an idea. Since I was a small boy, I used to work in my room for the whole day. And I even took apart my mom's new radio. And that day, she almost killed me, but I learned a lot about electronics. So I got an old car battery, an indicator box, the small device found in the motorcycle, and it helps motorists when they want to turn right or left, it blinks. And I got a switch where I can switch on the lights on and off. And that's a small torch from a broken flashlight. So I set up everything. As you can see, the solar panel charges the battery, and the battery supplies the power to the small indicator box. I call it a transformer. And the indicator box makes the lights to flash. And as you can see, the bulbs face outside, because that's where the lions come from. And that's how it looks to lions when they come at night. The lights flash and trick lions that I was walking around the caution, but I was sleeping in my bed. Thanks. So I set it up in my home 2 years ago, and since then, we have never experienced any problem with the lands. I used to hate lands, but now because my invention is serving my father's cows and the lands, we're able to stay with the lands without any conflict. Actually, it means in my language. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching that very short clip about Richard Torre's journey. No, nakita ninyo napakaganda na na-translate natin bilang mga guro yung creativity towards our students in producing or coming up with innovations that would really solve problems that they're encountering at home or in their respective communities by applying all the things that they are learning from our respective class. Napakaganda. And this particular video, nakita nyo na hindi tumigil si Richard Torre from his first attempt sa pag solve ng problem nila with the lions. No? Una, gumamit siya ng fire, hindi naging effective, hindi siya tumigil, very persistent, gumamit ng scarecrow, pero sabi niya nga matalino pa rin yung mga lions, so hindi pa rin siya tumigil at tiningnan niya, in-evaluate niya ano yung effective, what went wrong, what went well, at yun yung nagtulong or tumulong sa kanya in order for him to come up with his final solution, no, yung paggamit ng flickering lights. So, can you just imagine, teachers, if our students are also like Richard Torre, who are very keen, no, to the problems that they are experiencing in their respective houses or in their community, and really applying all the things that they are learning from our classes. So kaya nga may mga performance tasks na talagang very meaningful and relevant to them. And this actually leads me to project-based learning. If you've heard of project-based learning, pwede nyo po itong ipagawa kahit nasa bahay ang mga estudyante ninyo. It is a teaching method in which students learn by actively engaging in real-world, no? I would like to highlight that, real-world and personally meaningful projects. If you are interested on how project-based learning is being done in a particular class, allow me to share with you a site. No? Pwede kayong pumunta sa site na ito where you can actually see different learning activities, or you can actually see what you call this, you can see some sample projects na pwede ninyong ipagawa po sa inyong mga estudyante. Please do allow me to share with you this site. Okay, that's pblworks.com. So where is that? Okay, allow me to wait. Here, that's pblworks here. So here you would see different projects that you can also adapt in your respective classes. So pwede nyong i-click itong view the projects, and it will lead you to different projects that are available. So just for example, ito, every vote counts. What is the most equitable way to elect a new member of government? And this one is for free. When you click this, you can see that this is an integration between mathematics and social studies for grade 6. At ito yung project summary. And from there, you can just improve it based on, or contextualize it based on your respective schools or your respective context. So yeah, ng PBL works. So it's just an example of a site that you can actually visit. So moving on, aside from PBL, okay, now first, ensure active learning. Next, you have to be very communication. Number 3, we need to be very creative. I am now down to my last 2. Of course, in the advent of technology, hindi talaga natin may iwasan na kailangan sumabay. No? As educators, I know nung pre-pandemic time, karamihan sa atin, or marami sa nakikinig ngayon, yung mga seasoned teachers, na talagang na-challenge sila sa paggamit ng mga teknolohiya. Even my mother, ang nanay ko, there were times nung nagsisimula pa lang, talagang tatawagin niya ako at sasabihin niya, kapag nasa bahay ako, paano ba ito? May demo ko bukas, paano ko ipapakita to and all. Pero ngayon, nakakasabay na siya. And that's the beauty of it, no? We get to discover our strengths, no, as teachers, as individuals, at mas lalo tayong nag-i-improve. So, number 4, for us to ensure that there's engagement among our students is to integrate technology. This allows teachers to present in different formats that make lessons much more varied and interesting. Sabi nga kanina ni Andre, di ba, grade 8 student, gusto niya iba-iba, no? And this will actually offer you, no, solutions for those students na nakikita nila na pare-pareho na yung ginagawa natin. You can actually explore a lot of tools, online tools available out there for you to use them in your respective classes. So, one, I know you're very familiar now with Canva. Marami sa atin gumagamit ng presentation nila. There are those teachers who would require or who would ask their students to create logos, flyers using this platform. Meron na rin gumagamit ng Prezi. I know you're very into this. At syempre, ang PowerPoint presentation. On this slide, this is a sample project that I submitted, a simple project that I submitted to my graduate studies, no, sa program ko. We were required by our professor to summarize or synthesize everything we've learned from his class about social transformation, tapos nilagay namin sa isang diagram like this. And I know that through Canva, pwede nyo rin pong paggamit ito. Ito yung tinatawag nating infograph, no, or mga infographic, para nang sa ganun, mag-gauge din natin kung ano na yung mga natututunan ng mga estudyante. And they can actually transform their learning into something visual, no? At makikita nila na ito pala yung summary nung kanilang natututunan in your respective classes. At marami pa po yan. Even Google Earth, if you're teaching social studies or talking about a particular place, why not make use of Google Earth? For example, I know some of you are very much familiar with this already. Ipakita ko lang here. Kung halimbawang hindi pa po kayo allowed lumabas or mag-meet ng mga estudyante, and if you really want to tour your students around, pwede nyo pong gamitin itong platform na ito. So, for example, Google Earth here, naka-pin ako sa ating inang pamantasan. You just have to type in kung saan nyo gustong dalhin ng mga estudyante nyo. For example, you want to bring them napakalapit sa Philippine Normal University. I-type ko lang ang ating National Museum. For example, if you want, sa Padre Burgos Avenue, it will automatically bring you there. No? And from here, you can look at, please do take note that there are buttons here. At alam ko familiar din kayo, meron tayong 2D. Meron ding street view. If you want to make use of this, ilapit lang po natin ng konti. And if you want to allow your students to see what's inside, baka meron pang hindi nakakapunta, you just have to click a particular bubble, okay? And it will lead you there, no? So, ito yata yung sa harapan. You can go back again, okay, and choose another one. So, for example, baka may gusto kang painting na ipakita sa kanila or any particular piece of artwork. Ayan. So, pwede tayong mag-tour, no, using this online platform. At marami pa po kayo, pwede rin kayong gumamit ng iba pa pong ng ibang platform for you to tour your students virtually. So, this is just an example. Okay? So, allow me to go back. Aside from Google Earth, and I know you're familiar with this already, no? Meron din tayong iba't ibang mga platforms such as GoNoodle, kanina yung Padlet, I know you're also familiar, Epic, Khan Academy, and even Classroom Screen. Okay, dapat pala pinakita ko na kanina. So let me go back again to Safari. So for example, okay, kung halimbawang, ayan, i-close natin yung Google. This is the Khan Academy. To those who are teaching science, mathematics, okay, this is actually for free. So when you click the courses button, it will offer you math, high school, college, science, arts and humanities, reading and language arts, economics, computing, even test preparations and life skills. So all you have to do is to click a particular grade level, no? Na pwedeng yung i-click, no? So kung gusto nyo, i-click nyo lang yan, okay? And it will also bring you to a particular, parang okay. Parang kailangan ko na yatang mag-upgrade. But if you want to explore Khan Academy, there are videos that you can actually ask your students to watch, especially if you're discussing a concept on a particular topic, no? Pwede niyo itong gamitin sa kanila. Also, there's another one, okay? For reading naman, if you are concerned about your students' reading habits, or if you want to develop your students' genuine love for reading, and if you want to access books for free, then you can make use of this. This is Epic School. This is also for free. All you have to do is to sign up. So here you just have to click a particular subject or topic, and it will lead you to different genre. And then you just have to click one, no? And then there, you can actually read this to your students. At meron din itong mga read aloud, so you can strengthen their fluency and their comprehension as well. So yan, there. Also, kung halimbawang laging gamit nyo ay yung mga built-in presentation ng Zoom or Google Meet, you can also make use of classroom screen. So what you can see now is a sample of a classroom screen. Pwede nyo pong palitan ito. So this one is Statue of Liberty. Just click the background sign. Pwede kayong magpalit ng any design that you want for your classroom screen. And then if you want to engage more students in your discussion, all you have to do is to click the random name. Baka familiar po kayo. Ita-type nyo lang po yung pangalan ng inyong mga estudyante or kanilang mga nickname, no? And then when you ask a particular question during your discussion, all you have to do is to click choose at mag-a-appear na yan. May I hear from you, Lisa? What about Lisa again? Let's give the chance to others. What about you, Mark? What's your perspective on this? So pwede po kayong gumamit nito. At kung kayo ay may mga laro that would involve or make use of dice, ayan, pwede rin po kayong gumamit nito. But what I like about this, it will also allow you to draw, no, to illustrate, make use of this particular app. Meron din tayong timer kasi kanina sabi ni Teacher Sid, dapat i-maximize natin itong mga online platforms na to. So meron din calendar and so on. So this is classroom screen. Okay? So these are just some of the online tools that alam ko marami pa kayong alam din na ginagamit, such as yan nga, Padlet, Mentimeter, kung ano pa, just to really engage your students during your discussion. And so I'd like to share with you under technology as well what Professor Charmaine Espejo, my classmate since high school and also an instructor sa Institute of Teaching and Learning sa Philippine Normal University. She generously shared with me kung anong ginagawa niya sa loob ng classroom. Like, for example, this one using Nearpod, another platform that you can make use of in teaching her students to write. No? So using Nearpod, at ito naman, it's an activity, sabi niya, that they're doing as a post-reading game. Okay? So through Nearpod. Maraming salamat, Teacher Charm, for sharing this with me. So ang dami nating pwedeng gawin, hindi lang sa mga bata. Kahit ako po, as a doctoral student, hindi rin po ako nakaligtas sa mga gawaing ito. One of the things that I admire and I enjoyed about one of my courses is this. Meron kaming course on perspectives, psychological perspectives, about learning, about motivation, and our professor asked us to view videos or video clips, tsaka pinagbasa niya rin kami ng mga journal articles. At as an output, she asked us to come up with our own synthesis, no? About everything we've read, everything we've watched. Tapos, ito po yung aking ginawa. So, nakita niyo po siguro yung output ko. Ayan, meron akong mark over here at dito ko nilagay yung summary ng aking mga natutunan. But aside from doing that activity, what I enjoyed the most here is the collaborative part. So, hiningan niya rin kami ng pagkakataon na basahin, binigyan niya kami ng pagkakataon na basahin yung output ng mga kaklase namin sa Jamboard. And we were asked to give our feedback, no, constructive feedback and comment about the work of others. So, mas naging interactive yung ganitong activities. And kahit pre-pandemic time, nung nasa traditional classroom pa din ako, I would also ask my students to do the same, no? At kayo rin, pwede nyo rin po itong gamitin sa inyong mga estudyante. Okay? So, that's the fourth one. And the last one, teachers, I know it's already 10 a.m. Of course, after immersing and after exposing your students to a lot of activities just to engage them, it's really important to also decompress. Okay? Many studies found out that pausing for a moment is essential for resetting students' energy level, retaining, and staying on task. Kaya naman there are teachers who would end their sessions using mga simple games, mga simple art activity, or they would be singing with their students or would be cracking clean jokes para lang ma-decompress sila. But there are those who would show mga timer and would ask their students to pause for a moment. So parang pomodoro, no? They have to pause for a moment and collect their thoughts, ano man yung na-experience nila para maalala nila kung ano man yung mga na-experience nila for that particular class. So that's what we call decompress. And now, since I've already been talking for an hour, please join me in decompressing, no? Gusto kong magkaroon lang tayo ng very short activity using one of the online apps na pwede nyo rin gamitin. Kung hindi man pwede ito sa internet connection ninyo, pwede nyo rin po itong i-download. So this application is what we call where is that here? Go Noodle. Okay? Kung familiar po kayo, marami pong channels sa Go Noodle. Meron tayong indoor recess, meron ding flow if you want your students to relax and think positive. Ang favorite ko po is itong brainercise because at this point, before we end, I really want to challenge our brain. No? Parang i-relax lang natin and at the same time, let's just follow what Mr. Catman would ask us to do. Okay, this is I to the L.
With Mr.
Okay,
Catman.
I invite all participants to
I to the
kindly
L.
join us.
Mr.
Okay, with
Catman's
Mr.
desk
Catman.
is a mess. What a catastrophe.
All you have to do is to follow.
Hold your pinky on one
So your
hand
pinky
up
on
like
one
Mr.
hand
Catman.
like this.
On the other hand, make the letter L with your thumb and index finger.
Very
Meow.
nice.
At
Thank
the
you for
same
following.
time, switch your pinky to the L and the
Yes,
L to the
slowly
pinky.
switch it so you can relax and
Slowly at
focus
first.
and see whether you're
You
still
got it.
present
Switch your
at the
pinky
moment.
to the L and
Switch
the
it
L
slowly
to
and
your
then you can
pinky.
make it very quickly. Ayan.
Try it a little faster.
Very nice. Thank you for those who are following us. Ayan. Meron bang
This is
na-jumble
possibly one of
yung
the most
kanilang
difficult exercises.
mga kamay?
Why? Because Mr. Catman likes to challenge your brain.
Yes.
But it's all good.
Thank you so much for
Because
following. I hope
practice
you can
makes
follow with
perfect.
us.
For real.
Okay. So maraming salamat po. Thank you so much, Mr. Catman as well, for doing that activity with us. So, there. First, teachers, what are these activities? No, sabi nga ni Teacher Sid, first, we have to ensure that there's active learning. We have to be very creative. We have to communicate. We have to decompress. And at the same time, we have to integrate technology. And with that, at this point, let's have our question and answer portion. If there are questions that you would like to ask about the presentation, please feel free to do so. May mga katanungan ba kayo about the presentation that I just shared with you? While waiting for some questions, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our Inang Pamantasan for giving me this opportunity, and for all the participants who woke up early in the morning to just to be with us. No? Maraming salamat po for joining us in this particular episode. So we are still checking if there are queries, if there are questions, no, sa ating comment box. Muli, maraming salamat for joining us. Sa lahat po ng mga kapwa ko guro who also share with me their best practices, maraming salamat po. And I'd like also to invite you to also make use of the comment section, teachers. Sa lahat po na nakikinig ngayon, kung meron po kayong gustong i-share sa atin na mga best practices ninyo during this pandemic, this distance learning or blended learning, please do share it with me. Please do share it with us, because through that we can have a repertoire or a collection of teaching strategies that we can also apply in our respective classes para mas lumawak po yung at mas magamit ng karamihan yung mga best practices na ginagawa po ninyo sa inyong respective classrooms. Okay? There's a comment from I think this is Mamadel. Mamadel, congrats Sir Mark. I've learned a lot from you. Mamadel yan. Maraming salamat po. And from Ma'am Jo Marie Dinson Quijano, thanks for your discussion. Maraming salamat po for your commendations sa mga comments po ninyo. May mga katanungan pa po ba? Sabi ni Sir Mark Kwon, thanks sir sa napakagandang topic. Maraming salamat din, Sir Mark. Okay, we're still waiting for some questions. This is actually the paper that I'd like to produce. No, I would like to also gather teaching strategies, best practices from teachers, especially here in National Capital Region. Baka po gusto niyo po akong matulungan sa aking dissertation. Baka meron po kayong gustong i-share, especially best practices na ginagawa ninyo in the lower grades. No? Please feel free to contact me. Okay, ito po ang aking Gmail account at ito po ang aking Facebook account, Gleen Cidro. At malaking tulong po ang inyong maiaambag para nang sa ganun makatulong din po tayo on how we can do our best to impart best practices that other teachers can also do in navigating through blended learning. Okay? So, may katanungan pa po kaya? I think wala na pong mga katanungan. Sumuli po, maraming salamat. I would like to end my presentation by saying that we have to remember, teachers, that as educators, we need to make more efforts to gain our students' attention and to really engage them. It requires us, it requires you to be dynamic, to be enthusiastic, and interested in whatever you are doing. At katulad nga po nung isang taong aking hinahangaan, Ang sabi niya, ang taong namulat, hinding-hindi na muling pipikit. And same with blended learning, with student engagement, if we're going to translate it in our respective classroom, kayo pong mga guro, kayo pong mga gurong sumusulong at ginagawa ang lahat ng inyong makakaya para sa mga mag-aaral ay hinding-hindi na muli pang uurong para sa bata at para sa bayan. Muli po, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat for joining me this morning. Huwag po ninyong kalimutang i-share at i-like ang episode natin. Sa muli, ako po si Teacher Sid at sumainyo ang PNU Talks.